Thanks everyone for checking out my clip. My name is Mundo, and I'm going to be reading a bit from my new book, The Brubury Tales, which is available on Amazon.com in paperback and ebook. The Brubury Tales is a modern version of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, which is set in Los Angeles just after the riots. I'm also very excited to announce that this edition of the book has a special foreword written by Karen C. So without further ado, I'll be reading the general prologue, the book's introduction, and I hope you like it. When in April, and it hasn't yet rained, and the drought of March has again sustained another year of our eternal spring, then old Santa Ana begins to sing that fiery yet most familiar tune. And Los Angeles always feels like June. Smoggy skies and this endless summer day. Our seasons change by the sports that we play. The boys of summer always dodge the fall, so it's a good thing we have basketball, because our Rams and Raiders sneaked away, and the Kings make our winters cold and gray till the madness marches throughout the spring, and the Bruins and Trojans do their thing. Not that we all pay attention too much. In LA, we're pretty well out of touch from one community to the other. Neighbors are strangers to one another. The West Side is busy running the store, and the East Side is the West Side's eyesore. The South is the center of civil war between the LA cops and the gangland poor. The North is a place I can't say much about. Whenever I go there, I get kicked out. But none of this serves the matter at hand. This prologue's more what the scholars demand. Setting the meter, framing the poem. This part is not for you readers at home. That having been said, I'll really begin with the names and descriptions of all of the men and the one woman involved in this tale. And I'll start with Leo, the oldest male. But first, I should probably set the scene. The 7 of us, uniformed in green, all worked at the downtown Holiday Inn on the graveyard shift, which started at 10 and ended at 8 the following day. $8 an hour, no overtime paid from that cheap bastard Donald Brubury of Brubury Sons and Security. Leo Kapitansky, a Russian Jew, was in charge of our security crew. A handsome man for his age, I suppose, despite his large, disproportionate nose. His jaw chiseled sharp like some crime noir dick. His muscular body, solid and thick, combined to create a masculine air, virile and strong as his full head of hair. But Leo had hands like a woman might, small fingers thin, with the skin as smooth and tight as the hide of a bongo drum from Spain. Perhaps his hands had been shrunk by the rain that slipped like tears from red mother sockets. Years spent patrolling, hands in his pockets, smoking and drinking to try and stay warm. 8 years in the army with little harm, thank God, because he was the best of men. May I never see my mother again? If indeed I'm not telling the truth. So what if he cheated on his wife, Ruth? After all, none of us is without sin. If I'm wrong, let the rock throwing begin. And Leo's no different in that regard, but he was one fine security guard. Second in command was Alex Loma, who spent his shifts in sort of a coma, sleeping from midnight till 7:30, snoring and drooling. It wasn't pretty. But he had another job on the side, which is why most of us just let it slide and never complained or molested him. Besides, most of the guys detested him and preferred that he spent his time asleep. Alex Loma was a huge macho creep, an ounce of steak to a pound of pure fat. And that's all I'm going to speak of that. John Schamberger's next, a man without shame. Schamberger, he said, was just a slave name, imposed upon his shackled ancestors by white American dream investors who killed the natives and enslaved the blacks, and then built this country upon their backs. Schamberger had taken classes at school that spoke of the acre and of the mule, promised to families allegedly freed, when northern guilt beat out southern greed. Bitterness bubbled and shot through his veins, and started to eat away his brain. It's because I'm black, his favorite phrase. He pulled the race card at every phase of an argument he was losing. His credibility took a bruising with all the time and energy spent on trying to prove O.J. innocent. We argued for so many months on end, and not even once did he break or bend, but I must admit I admired him. The fire inside that inspired him made him always look outside of the box. And although he seemed stubborn, made of rocks, he's one of the best men I ever knew. Over the years, I watched him as he grew. He's a volunteer mentor down in the hood, in Hawthorne, Compton, and Inglewood. He doesn't drink, smoke, or use any drugs. He preaches to pimps and dealers and thugs the word of the book he keeps by his bed. John promised me that before he was dead, he will have made the world a better place. And I watched as a tear slipped down his face, and I knew that right then he already had. But before this tale gets too sappy or sad, I'll get back to Schamberger later and move things ahead to Joseph Dater, the next of our group in seniority. Not that rank is a real priority, it's more a practical way to proceed, and Joe Dater was practical indeed. Economic with words and with feeling, Oft he'd sit and stare up at the ceiling, leaning way back in the chair provided. Rarely ever did he get excited. Born near Manila, circa 63, Joseph dreamed of the land of liberty. But now apparently he was content. He had enough money to pay the rent. He had a car and a nice place to live, and a little something left over to give to his local church once in a while. A gift he gave with a wink and a smile. Joe once was a serious Catholic, right up to the day his father got sick and died slowly of cystic fibrosis. Joe's faith suffered his father's prognosis, and like many now, he questioned a God who unsparingly failed to spare the rod on the good and loyal sheep of the flock, while the black sheep's profits, barrel and stock, piled up like the Amaboa mountain. For Joe, it was more coins tossed in a fountain, a deposit for a seat in heaven. Joe's wife worked at the 7-Eleven part-time on the weekends to make ends meet. Pretty, young, and apparently sweet. She cooked like his mom back in Malolos. She spoke English, Spanish, and Tagalog. She let Joe get his sleep during the day, and Joe rarely had anything mean to say of his wife or of their life together, for Joe's life was the smoothest of weather. But Joe did have kind of a darker side. He once beat a man near death who had tried to proposition him in a sexual way. Joe knew some judo and some karate, and used all that he could to clock the man. If there was a God, then it wasn't his plan, Joe felt, to create that type of creature. This by far was his ugliest feature, which I've included for your benefit, with all the details I feel best befit a fair and worthy portrait of my friends. The means, if you will, justify the ends. My loyalty to them does not affect how I describe them now in retrospect, which is how I must describe myself next. It's only fair as I'm part of this text. JT is the name, and though I'm the bard, I'm suddenly finding it very hard to speak of myself as I did of my peers. Perhaps if I had a couple of beers, I might be able to figure things out. Not that alcohol is what I'm all about, it's just that I put myself in a jam. For now it seems I don't know who I am. All in all, I'd say I'm a decent guy, although I have been known to tell a lie or two to the ladies from time to time. But is that an unforgivable crime? It's not like these girls just give it away. Hell, most won't give me the time of the day. One must work to catch the girl of his dreams when he's shorted around like a Krispy Kremes. Girls have said I don't communicate well, that I lock things inside and never tell them the things that they need or want to hear. Hey waitress, come on, hurry up with that beer. But is that my failure or is it theirs? By trying to change circles into squares, aren't they being a little bit unfair? As if their shapes are beyond all repair. I should probably mention my family. After all, they are a huge part of me. At least once a week we get together, and over lunch we discuss if whether or not the film we watch have done their jobs. One might say we're a family of snobs, by the intense way we dissect the work. But this freedom we share is the best perk of our weekly family day routine, in which any censorship is obscene. But is it unnatural to these ends, to have one's parents as his best friends? I'll leave that question to another bard, and return to my own LA backyard, where for years I've been a security guard. UCLA full-time is really hard when you work the graveyard from 10 to 8, but I wasn't the only of this fate. Rolla Amin was also a student, from Iraq no less, where it wasn't prudent for a woman to be educated. This outdated practice proved ill-fated when Rolla accepted to USC would pursue a women's studies degree. I first met Rolla on the downtown train, because my car was in the shop again. The train car was empty and I was beat, and instead of choosing an empty seat, she walked over and sat down next to me. "Excuse you," I said, and turned to see this beautiful girl in a burgundy and yellow-colored Trojan V-neck tee. "I'm Rolla," she sang in lyrical prose, and normally I would have turned up my nose at the sight of such obvious bad taste. After all, SC is for panty waste. But Rolla was different. She smelled so good, like chocolate, jasmine, and sandalwood. So I apologized and looked away. She spoke after that, but I couldn't say exactly what it was she spoke about. She gave me her number, and we went out a couple times, but before I knew it, too scared to kiss her, I really blew it, winding up in the friend category. Which wasn't the worst part of the story, because like some schmo, I played the friend part and gave her college career a jumpstart by getting her a job at the hotel. And sure, working the graveyard shift is hell, but it also offers time to study. Hours of quiet time with her buddy, me, JT Glass, the pathetic coward. It wasn't long before my feelings soured for pretty Rolla, my platonic friend. Which finally brings this list near the end, as there's just one last guard for you to meet. A funny little dude nicknamed the Feet. His mother named him Darren Arita, born in a taxicab in Reseda on her way to the hospital that day. As a child, the Feet had started to play the piano, he said, when he was just 3. The Feet swore he was a prodigy. He allegedly went to special schools, which maximized all the God-given tools that constructed his superior mind. A bigger liar would be tough to find than my good friend and co-worker the Feet, but a nicer guy you may never meet. Both the youngest and shortest of our group, the Feet was often left out of the loop, like an annoying little brother type. Often he'd brag about laying the pipe to a few of the hot cleaning ladies, Hispanic women he called his babies, who he had never even spoken to. His raunchy stories were vivid and blue, obvious lies, but so entertaining, which only Rolla was left complaining about the unlikelihood of it all. She deemed these story sessions a sausage ball, in which we gleeful yahoos, awash in muck, threw crap on the wall to see if it stuck. But I couldn't blame the Feet for trying. His ticket in was his gift for lying. Without it, the Feet was simply ignored, except when the guys rolling on the floor would laugh and tease him about his huge feet, which resembled two ham hocks, fat with meat, a feature with highly colored as lies, as such was the trait that caught women's eyes. But the Feet was plain old daring to me. Often on patrols, he would let me see all of his colors, and not just the blue. He seemed to paint for the rest of the crew. Life was a struggle which would never ease, being unsuccessfully Japanese. He was a runt with big old hooves for feet. He slurred his race in ways I won't repeat. His culture, ingrained with honor, pride, made failure's only virtue suicide. Thoughts seemingly haunting him every day of just giving up and slipping away. We were kindred spirits. I know this now, though I'm not sure why and I'm not sure how. He just wanted to know that he'd be fine. He showed me his scars, and I showed him mine. But no more of this sad and sorry stuff. Of these descriptions I've said enough for a common portrait of those akin to the tale of which at last I'll begin. And that's the end of the general prologue introduction for the Brubury Tales by Frank Mundo. I hope you check it out on Amazon.com. It's available in paperback and in ebook. Thanks for your time.